In this presentation, we will be comparing the life stages of stars to celebrities, whom are also known as stars. So, the pre-main sequence is the stage before the main sequence. Gravity condenses a nebula cloud together and creates enough pressure to the point where hydrogen fusion can begin. Pre-main sequence stars are basically stars that are very young, aren't there yet, and will eventually get to the level of other stars. For example, Mary-Kate and Ashley from Full House. Pretty much the same thing. Main sequence stars are basically dense gas and fluid in a state of hydrostatic equilibrium. Position on the main sequence is a function of the star's mass and luminosity relationship. Time in the main sequence varies widely, with some staying for 10 million years and others for 80 billion years. Stars in the main sequence are roughly 72% hydrogen, 25% helium, and 2% of a mix of heavier elements. The main sequence is the period in which the star spends most of its time. Leonardo DiCaprio has spent the last 15 years as one of the best, most consistent stars in all of Hollywood. No one could think that Leo is getting old or out of his prime. He's still king of the world. Red giants occur toward the end of the star's life. It expands to many times its original size, and the surface temperature is cooler due to this larger size. The core eventually burns out, then fusion stops and the star begins to shrink. It shrinks until new helium shell ignites and blows the star apart into a planetary nebula. Red giants are stars that have basically gotten out of their prime, main sequence years, but are still very large. Bruce Willis is a great embodiment of this because he hasn't done anything that good in years, yet is still one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. At this point, you wonder how many more Die Hard movies he could make. Probably a lot. So, super red giants are very similar. They are much more massive and don't last as long. This star may be both physically and metaphorically the most massive star in Hollywood. Arnold Schwarzenegger became huge due to his one-liners and action scenes, but those days didn't last long and now his career has died down drastically. Now, a helium flash is when hydrogen runs out and helium takes its place. The star will then quickly shrink and there will be a large ejection of mass. Everyone in this generation has witnessed a star go through a helium flash, going from being huge to having a massive breakdown. Britney Spears. Yeah. Ugh. Moving on. Asymptotic giants are low-mass stars that are unstable and develop after a helium flash. This is the stage where helium begins to get exhausted. Robert Downey Jr. is one of the biggest stars out there. As shown from his earlier drug problems, he can be extremely unstable and unpredictable, like his character in many of his movies. This is the high mass stage which comes after the helium flash. The temperatures are high enough for oxygen and hydrogen to fuse. The blue supergiant is very close to death, but still continues to shine. The star is extremely massive at this point. Who else fits this description more than Morgan Freeman? Oh, this guy is so close to the end, but he just refuses to go. He's the voice of God and will continue to shine until he decides to die. So, planetary nebulas. Planetary nebulas are remnants of old red giants. They only last a few thousand years. About 20% of them are spherical, and the rest are non-symmetric. Nebula are either matter-bounded or radiation-bounded. These nebulas are typically explosions of low-mass stars, in which the star implodes and turns into a white dwarf star, which is basically irrelevant. One example would be Charlie Sheen's career, which was going great until his mental breakdown happened. Now, Sheen is not exactly the winner he thinks that he is. Supernovas, which are explosions of high-mass stars, and they leave nothing but a neutron star or black hole, which don't emit light. The fusion created by heavy elements like iron and nickel, and this happened to a star that was so huge that when he was gone, there was a massive void that could not be filled. Elvis, for one example, was the king of pop and arguably the king of most types of music when he was around. However, when he passed away, no one could quite follow his footsteps, and many argue that this has still not been done.